What's going on, everybody? Thanks for tuning in to this episode. I want to say thanks to everyone who's been watching my last couple of episodes and commenting and things like that. I really appreciate it. Apologize a little bit if you're getting an echo. I am in my outside bar right now. There's a couple things going on inside the house, but I had good lighting out here, so I thought, come on out and do it out here. I've got some notes here in front of me, and like the video description says, I'm going to be talking about some very important tips that I think will help first-time fishing kayakers. Now, I'm sure that there's going to be a bunch of you out there that are probably going to watch this video that have been kayak fishing for a very long time, and you're like, let me hear what this guy says as his beginning kayak fishing tips. And you're probably going to think some of these tips might be kind of silly, but I want to give a little bit of reason for why I decided to do this video. And honestly, the one main reason, which is the only reason I was doing it, is the fact that I watched a lot of these videos before I went kayak fishing for the first time. I watched a bunch of top 5 tips for kayak fishing, top 5 things you must own, top 5 things you need to have the first time you go kayak fishing. On top of that, I also watched just kayak videos, like 5 things every first time kayaker should know, or 5 things you definitely should have when you're on a kayak. I watched a good probably 24 of those videos, and they were a lot of help. They were. I got some good ideas. I learned, a bunch of things that I wouldn't have thought of. And I learned, some things that I needed to pay attention to and know about before I went out. But these things are my top 5 plus a couple little more that after going out, now I've been out 3 times kayak fishing. Most of these were after the first time out. I thought to myself, I wish I would have known a little bit better about that particular thing. Try not to spoil any of my top 5s here. And these were things that in the 24 or so videos that I watched, no one really talked about as being things you needed to know on your first time out. I'm sure after my 10th time out, there's going to be a couple more things. I'll be like, dang, I didn't notice this, or I didn't realize this. But I'm saying these are some of the things first-time kayak fishers should know about, because they were things that I wish I would have known about. So right here in front of me, I've got some notes. So not really in any particular order. I'm going to go through them. Okay, you ready? Here we go. First one. Practice casting from a sitting down position. Now, I've been fishing for over 40 years. I would say I easily have 1 million casts under my belt. That could be a small number, all right? So it was a bit surprising to me how much difficulty I was having casting my line out. When you're sitting down, it is just a different motion that you're not used to casting from. Now, I've stood on riverbanks and I've had to cast under things and over things and leaned and cast around things, but it's different. The casts that you're making are always changing because the boat is drifting, the boat is turning and moving. So you might want to cast at a specific log that is moving past you. So you're not just always casting forward. From a riverbank or from a larger boat, I'm almost always casting forward. If I want to go this way, I'll turn and cast. If I want to go farther that way, I'll turn this way and cast. You can't do that on the kayak. You have to learn to cast back over your shoulder if you want to hit a certain spot. So there's just a lot of weird, strange angles that you're going to want to cast from inside your kayak. And I strongly recommend that you practice, put it in the middle of a field, put it in a yard, or just even before you really focus on trying to like move and hit spots, get in the middle of somewhere that's open and just practice casting, your bait caster, your spinning reel, and just practice both casting all back over your shoulder and front, you get the point, okay? Practice casting. I wasn't ready for how difficult it was going to kind of be making some weird angle cast. And after a couple of times, I've already seen a dramatic improvement. But I just think you should know before going out your first time that you're going to think to yourself, I've been fishing for 40 years. I'm not going to have an issue having to cast a pole. Number 2 is do not underestimate the wind. Now, I knew the wind was going to blow my boat around and push my boat faster and things like that. And I expected that. But there's a couple other little things that I didn't think about, okay? Sitting something small down for a second that doesn't weigh anything could blow away like that. And I'm going to snap my fingers a lot because when a wind comes, there's no warning. So I'm talking like a piece of trash. You're eating something, you set it down, set the piece of trash down, it's gone. So make sure you're constantly putting that stuff in a baggie, in something, in your pocket. The paddle catches the wind a lot more than not that I would have known about, that I just thought in my head, because the first time I went out, I would lay the paddle across my lap. I would paddle, lay it across my lap, throw some cast. Paddle around, put it across my lap, throw some cast out. A nice gust of wind came and it took the paddle, and like spun it around in front of me. And luckily it didn't come flying off the boat. I didn't have a strap at the time. I do have a floating paddle and I don't plan on going anywhere too crazy, or I will probably strap it in. But if you just put your paddle up in front of you and lay it down, the wind can blow it that way. I've gotten a little bit better already at just making sure I put my paddle away every chance I get. But if you do keep it across you like that, or just lay it down in your boat, the wind can grab that thing, and it can act as a little bit of a sail too, and kind of turn your kayak a little bit faster if your paddle's on the sides and a wind gust comes up. I took my PDF off at one point just to kind of like readjust and like fix myself. And one point I just kind of wanted to like hold my PDF and just kind of relax with it off. And the wind gust almost took that out the kayak. So my number 2 is just expect more issues with the wind than you might have thought the first time going out. And keep everything light, nice and secure and put away. Now, number 3 is a little bit of a cop-out because it's almost not quite its own number, but it's sort of a combination of the first 2 things I talked about, and that's wind and casting. When you put those 2 things together, that can greatly affect what you're throwing. And let me just kind of put it to you this way. So if you're throwing, let's say, like a slow-moving bait, something that has to sink, like a wacky worm or something like that, or maybe you're doing a slow-moving Texas rig and or some sort of like finesse jig, and the wind is really strong or the current is strong, then you're going to cast that thing off to the side, and you're not going to have that time that you would normally have to play with that. Play with that jig. If you got a wacky worm there and you're waiting for it to drop, and then you're going to reel down into it, and you're going to pull it up, let it drop as you reel down into it. That might not happen. The current could be going so fast, or the wind could be pushing you, that you don't have the time to do any of that. So you have to think about that quite a bit when you go out, as far as like figuring out the current of the water and the wind and how fast it's pushing you, and decide if you're going to be able to fish that type of lure. Also, if you are fishing something like that, you want to almost cast that in front of you, because you'll cast it in front, like boom, there's your cast. Then you're reeling it in, and here's your kayak, and here's your line, and you're reeling it in, and now it's in. So just something else that I really think you need to think about, that can really affect what you're throwing, the wind and the current, and you're casting. So think about that before you go out for the first time. Now, here we go on to number 4, which technically could be like a 3.5, even though 3 was sort of 1 and 2. Anyway, number 4 is what I'm calling it. And that is how much reeling in your pole can affect the kayak movement. Now, a little bit different from the slow moving stuff, finesse stuff that you're bringing in. You got some heavier jigs, a big spinner, maybe some sort of big fat heavy bladed jig, and you're doing a fast reel in with that. Your kayak can be going like this, and you've got it set, and you're moving. Maybe you've got a rudder, maybe you've got pedals, but you're not pedaling at the moment. You throw that bladed jig out there, like you're like this. You throw that bladed jig. Let's say this little thing right here is a stump, and here's the kayak. And then you throw out your bladed jig. You reel that thing in, and it literally will pull your kayak like that, and pretty drastically. In fact, the last time I went out, I was using this to my advantage. I had a nice bladed jig on there, and I was throwing it out to my left, reeling it in like 3 times, and would steer me. And then, oh, I need to get back over to the right. I throw it out to the right. It would steer me around. And now that I'm going to have to deal with the neighbor's dog barking 5 feet behind my shed, I'm going to try to get this thing moving, because we're up to number 5. Number 5 is called less is more. Now, I have this thing when I go camping, or when we go on vacations, I feel like I want to take everything that I can think of that I might possibly need while I'm there, so that I don't have to either come home or be without something that I might need. And this happened the first time I went kayak fishing. I thought of everything that I might need while I was out there, and I took it with me. Now, it was nice and packed. I had a Plano with, non-fishing stuff that I just kind of needed. But I also just I took too much baits. I took too much little paraphernalias for my camera. And you're out there and you just don't need it. It gets in your way. One of the things that happened to me the first couple of times out is you have a lot of small things, and you've got your crate. If you have your crate, your kayak crate, if you've got like a couple small things and some big things, and you've got it all nice and neat and packed in your little crate, right? Well, you move that big thing out, what happens? All the little stuff goes falls down, and now you can't get the big thing back in there. And turning around, this is another little thing. It takes some getting used to. I knew this was going to be an issue. It wasn't like, reaching around while you're on a kayak and moving around. Obviously, that was something that I knew about. But it's not that easy trying to get into the crate and get small things out or move things around and try to put something back in there. So I definitely took a lot less stuff my second time out, and it made for a lot better experience. And I'm sure once I go more and more and more, I'll get more comfortable with exactly what I need to take out. And 1, I'll be taking less out, or 2, I'll feel more comfortable to start taking a little bit more stuff out. But the first time you go out, less is more. Okay, we're already running a little long here, so I want to speed through a couple more little tips before I get out of here. And the first one I want to let you know is that the PDF you choose matters a lot. I went to Dick's. I tried on like 5 or 6 different PDFs. I kind of standing up, trying one on. This fits me really well. This fits me really well. Sitting down and having different motions is different than standing up and something feeling good on you. I had a lot of issues with the PDF I first bought, and it would kind of rise up on me. I didn't have the range of motion that I really wanted with my arms, so I did end up getting a better Field and Stream sort of fisherman PDF that has a lot more open shoulder and arm flexibility that I like a lot better. So just know your first PDF you purchase, and every video is going to tell you, yes, you need a PDF. I think that was in 20 of the 24 videos I watched, but the one you get matters. And if I can find one that just sort of like goes over all the different styles and types, that would be a good video. Maybe I'll link it in the description if I can find one of them before I put this out, or when I put this out. Next, I want to just say practice getting in and out of the kayak. Even if you just sit it in your yard, just practice getting in and getting out. Getting in, I find it a little easier. Again, I've been out 3 times. It's going to get easier and easier and easier. But I would just suggest that you practice a little bit. Getting in, you can kind of hold the seat. You can kind of use your paddle. Here's what I want you to do. Right now, I want you to sit down on your floor, on your butt, with your legs straight out in front of you. Now stand up. That's what you have to do from a boat that's rocking back and forth when it's in the water. Okay? Standing up from a completely seated position on the ground with your legs straight out. You can bend your knees, sure, but it takes some practice, and I would recommend just trying it a few times before you get in your kayak for the very first time and you get to the shore and you may or may not be tired and you're like, now I have to get out of this thing. All right? It wasn't overly difficult. I did it with no issues, but each time I've done it, I'm like, man, this is took a little getting used to. You're gonna get better at it. I already feel like I'm getting a little better at it after having to do it 4 times. I know I said I've fished 3 times. I've been out in my kayak 4 times. So I would just say practice that a few times for the first time you go out. Lastly is watch YouTube videos like this one, but also join groups. Join some Facebook groups. I'm in a couple of New Jersey kayak groups, South Jersey Kayaks, New Jersey Bass Fishing, Kayak Fishing, and I have to say that all these groups have been very helpful. I've posted questions. I've gotten some great answers. I've posted some recommendations. Got some great recommendations. No one's ever been jerky that I've noticed to other people on there. Yes, you're going to get the, oh, look at you. You took a picture of yourself in a kayak and you're not wearing your PDF. Okay. Well, you're going to get that. No big deal. Sometimes I take my PDF off. If it's calm waters, I'm comfortable with the water I'm in. I can swim. The PDF is right next to me. I started hooking it onto my seat with a quick release cantilever, but I wear it pretty much all the time, and now that I have the new one, I probably will wear it 100% of the time. I was taking the other one off every once in a while just to kind of give myself a break. My new one, I don't think I'll ever do that. But that's beside the point. The groups on Facebook are extremely helpful. I even had a gentleman say he was going to give me some hooks for my kayak. Unfortunately, my job hours have been unbelievable. So any little couple of times I did have an early time, that's when I went out. Or, you know, with just house stuff, it's just crazy trying to find the time. But I was so appreciative of that. The guy was going to give me these for free. And I just can't say enough about that. Joining some groups, watching YouTube videos is definitely something that I think you should do before you get started and go out for your first time. So that's that. Hope you guys liked it. If you're going out for the first time, you're going to love it. I loved it. And I can't wait to spend lots and lots and lots more time out on the water in my kayak and hopefully catching some nice sized fish. So with that, if you liked the video, subscribe, hit the bell, and I will be very appreciative of that. Comment below if you have any other tips that you'd like some first-time kayakers to know that maybe I didn't cover or you haven't seen covered in other places. And with that said, go fishing.